Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar delivered by ATD, the Secrets to Leadership Development. This is Hoda Abdel Hay. I am the coordinator from Informa Middle East, and we have with us today Elizabeth Hanna from the ATD team in the US logged on. Elizabeth is the Director of Program Quality, Partnerships and Facilitators at ATD. I'm going to be covering just a few housekeeping points before we start the webinar today. So there will be a recording for the entire webinar that will be sent at 48 hours after the webinar is over. You can send in questions. You'll find a question bar where you can put in your question. Elizabeth will, at one point through her webinar, will take in questions and she will answer them. And also Elizabeth will be delivering a ATD certificate program and speaking at the ATD Saudi Arabia conference that is taking place in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia this December on the 5th and 6th of December. So there will be more information about that at the end if you're interested to know more about that. And I'll turn it over to Elizabeth now.
Oh, thank you, and good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Hanna, and I'm excited to be here to start my day with you all from Washington, D.C. And we have sunshine, which is unusual since we have had a lot of rain. And so I'm thrilled to be sharing with you secrets to leadership development. ATD, if you're not aware, we're celebrating our 75th anniversary, and we are the leading professional society globally for talent development professionals. So we have a lot of experience in the leadership development space. So I'm really happy to be sharing with you some secrets about that. But first, I want to get us, there was a recent survey that was done by Fortune magazine, and the statistics there are pretty insightful that I want us to get started talking about. So Fortune magazine surveyed CEOs and asked them what they believe about leadership development. And the next only 7% believe that they are effectively developing global leaders. Only 7% of them surveyed said that. Now, the next statistic is the one that you're going to have to hold on to your chair. Only 1 in 10 felt that their leadership development programs were offering and having a clear business impact. So that's pretty insightful in that only 1 in 10 thought their leadership development programs were having an impact on their organization. So for us as talent development professionals, this can be discouraging. Because we spend a lot of time and a lot of money on leadership development. So, but it's not disheartening, it's data, and it's telling us something. So what is it telling us is, in fact, that there is really no magic bullet for leadership development. It is not just one and done. It is not just you put out a program and then you can say, I've got it, I've checked the box, and then we've got our leadership team in place. It's just no magic bullet. The second part of this data, and that is telling us, is that you have to have really meaningful business impact. And that is what you have to have first and foremost when you are building a leadership development program and running it. And that you have to make sure that that business impact is measurable and observable so that people can see it and that it can be measured. And that they know, so they know while they're spending all this money on people going to leadership programs, but it is really having meaningful impact on the organization. So leadership development, it's a lot like building a house. So I want to get you guys started right away, and you want to type in a question. It's really not a question, but I want you guys to share with me, how is building a leadership development program like building a house? Just put on a little bit of a, just type there under the questions. I want to hear from you all what you think, how you think building a leadership program is like building a house. They're very similar. And so requires a strong foundation, have to have a good, they don't get foundations right, the building will fall. Foundations, yes, you have to start from the bottom, a strong base. It takes planning. Thank you, Marie. Yep, you need a plan. Exactly, strong foundation is step by step, getting the foundation right. It's an investment. Exactly, that's a really good one. And let's see, the leadership is the chassis of the whole house. Ah, I like that. That's a great analogy there. You guys have that, exactly. So you've got it. You really summed up what we were thinking here at ATD, is in that building a leadership development, you have to start from the ground up. You have to get it right from the ground up, which is meaning it's getting to know what is the business impact. You need to know that up front. That you need a blueprint. That's the plan. You need a blueprint. You need to know exactly where you want this, where you want your house. And your leadership development program is that you want to know exactly where this program is going to go and what is going to be that business impact. And strong foundation. You all said it. Every one of you who said it said exactly, it's got to be a strong foundation. This one is that it has to be a system and not an event. So that means it's more than just having people go off to their programs and they get their certificates, you have your cohort, and then they come back and you do it again. That it has to be systemic throughout the organization, and it has to be integrated throughout all processes in the organization. So that is really important. And that's like a house. A house is just not, it's just a whole intricacy of things. And so that's their similarity there. And it has to be sustained. You cannot be just one and done. It's a phrase we like to say. It's not just one and done. Like a home, it has to be sustained. I have a new condominium that we live in, and who would have thought with the new condominium that I would have water damage on my roof and things leaking through the ceilings? So it's like my house. You have to maintain it. You have to sustain it. So leadership programs, they have to be carried throughout and through. So what I'm going to do for the next part of this session is I'm going to walk you guys through some 6 factors that ATD research has pulled together on what we think are the critical factors needed in a leadership development program. So there's 6 factors. So I'm going to walk you guys through what we think are what the 6 factors are. And the first is that they have to be future focused. Successful organizations make sure their leadership development programs are strategically driven and see business strategies as inseparable from leadership development. They are always looking for skills that will matter for their future success. And so leadership programs, they have to be connected to those business strategies. Always remember that statistic. There's a reason why I started us off with that 1 out of 10. Don't think you're having business impact. So that's why your first factor you have to consider is the future and making sure that you are having business impact. So you also have to contextualize the leadership model into that specific strategy and where the organization is wanting to go in the future, so that you have to build it into it. The second is that a successful organization, you have to have fully engaged senior managers and senior leaders. They have to take responsibility and recognize the leadership gaps are an obstacle to the execution of the organization's strategy. So if they are not engaged, you will be climbing a mountain that will just kept on getting taller. It will change. It will do all sorts of different things. And you're thinking that with many leaders say that they are engaged. You'll think they're engaged. They come to the kickoff of the cohorts. You know, people get their photos taken with the senior managers or the CEOs. That's not necessarily so. It's not necessarily that you are having them engaged. It's not just having them engaged and coming to the photos, coming to the photo shoots. They have to be engaged through and through. So it goes in having them be as leaders, as teachers. It has in them talking about the program. Accepting responsibility means that they need to know what the outcomes are, and they need to know how it is going. So you have to also make sure it goes across the organization, throughout the entire organization, and that it's not just one cohort specific. So our next factor is our third factor. And can you guys tell me, anybody tell me, what do they think this is that I'm showing you? Can you type in a question what you think this is? What is this picture showing? Can you guys see my picture? Okay. Now, maybe you guys can see my picture. My apologies. Whew. All right. Can you guys now see the picture? I think it's going. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I apologize that I thought I had the slides going, but the slides are on there now. Okay. Okay. My apologies. So we're now, here we go. Can you guys see the slide? Can you guys see it now? Can you see the picture now? It looks like it says audience view 100% on my time. All right. Does anybody have any ideas of what we're seeing? What is this? Waves. Okay, now I know. Thank you, Halid, that we're on the same thing. Anything else? What do you think this is? All right. Okay, yep, it's waves. So, all right, I'm going to share with you. I lived in Hawaii for a few years, and they love surfing. And when I was looking for a picture of a pipeline, this popped up. And so this is a type of pipeline. It's called the pipeline. It's in Hawaii. It's a surfing term. And that you want to have a quality pipeline of leaders. And that is what this is showing. So we all know how important it is that you have to have a pipeline of good employees that we can build to become future leaders. But how often are we caught out when someone leaves or a senior member of the family passes away and we don't have a pipeline in place? So as important, it's always important for talent development professionals that we constantly advocate to have experienced, high quality leaders to fill positions. And they also know that having a vibrant succession plan may be better than just hiring from the outside. Okay, so the third factor is having that quality pipeline. So the fourth factor is that really it goes without saying that we have to have standards and measurements, and we know how important they are. But the fourth success factor is that it has to be results oriented. And this is really important for leadership programs. Programs often fail when they do not take into account what success means. And success does not always have to be monetary. Success, it can be about retention, it can be about promotions of middle managers, it can be about lots of other different things. But the important factor is that your senior leaders, remember, their engagement is success number 2, is that they need to know what the outcomes will be for this investment, because leadership development programs are a significant investment. And that they need to know what the goals are, and the goals need to be established for them, that they need to be able to be tracked, they need to be able to be measured, and they need to be able to be evaluated. So that's what they need to be doing. So you have to establish the goals and let everybody know what the goals are. You have to track the outcomes, and that you have to measure the results, and then you have to share them, and then you have to constantly evaluate, and then again share those evaluations. Another way to think about this is that you have to really design for learning transfer, and that you have to build on the strengths of your people, and that you have to make them apply what they're doing, what they learn in the leadership program, and have them apply it back at work, or bring a work project into the program for them to apply. So I want to see if there's any questions right now anybody has with my where we are right now in the steps. If you can type your question in. Senior leaders should be able to see the larger picture. So we have, how do we keep the senior leaders? Somebody asked a question, how do we keep the senior leadership fully engaged? That's a great question. And how do you keep them fully engaged? It's you let them know where it is going, and you tell them that you are going to tell them that you're going to be checking in with them periodically. That you're going to be, you tell them right up front, they're going to hear about the program from the first stage, from the second stage, the third stage, and the fourth stage. That you are constantly are keeping it in there, and that you are constantly are updating them on this. And so I am going to summarize the factors in a little bit when we get through them all. And so how to be applied to an ongoing project. So say that there is an initiative that the organization is struggling with, how to be innovative in using a digital solution for their HR function. And so you could use your leadership development program as somewhat of a hub, and that they are actually working and collaborating. It's like a lab environment on a specific project that the organization is struggling with. And so that you give it to them to have them to work on, and then the people in the leadership program, they could present. And they could present it to the senior leaders. That's a strategy that we do here with ATD in our leadership program. Is we have some work on engagement issues all the time, and so we break up into teams, and they work on a real problem that the organization needs action on, and they roll up their sleeves and they get in, and then they present. So it's another question is how to keep everybody motivated. I like how you're keeping them motivated, and the best way to keeping folks motivated is to letting them know what is going on constantly throughout the process. So I'm going to next move on to the fifth factor, and I will be summarizing this up later in in a few minutes. So the fifth factor is that you have to value learning and development, that your leaders have to value learning and development, but they have to value it for everybody in the organization. Because it's so easy to get distracted and or sort of look at, like, you know, I have my high potentials, I want to have my pipeline, I want to build that, you know, that's why I'm focusing on my high potentials, because they're helping the strategy. But you need to be knowing that you have it for everybody in the organization. And when people see that learning is valued for everybody, then that will help individuals. They will understand that there is how important that learning and development is, and how that they are to take it seriously. So we have a picture here of folks in our master trainer program, and they're from Domino's Pizza. And so you can see that they were having a good time, but they value learning for all. That's the fifth factor that we have uncovered in our research. It's not just for the high potentials, but it is from everybody in the organization. And our sixth factor is that your leadership programs, they have to be aligned, and it has to be strategic alignment with all the other aspects of the organization. And you have to take a systemic approach to developing the leaders to be able to cope with all of the challenges that they're going to face. And it's not necessarily those challenges that led to prior organization, but that has to be future focused. So that really thinking about the future is a key part in your leadership development programs. So you have to be able to also build in using adapting systems and processes that will enable your leaders to engage. So you have to be able to pivot and to keep those leaders engaged throughout from their program and beyond. So making sure that there's strategic alignment with what is important to the organization, and that it is also being future focused. So I'm going to summarize for us here what the critical success factors are. All right, the first one is that it is future focused. So what I meant by future focused is that you have to look at being strategically delivered and see business strategies as inseparable from leadership development. That is your leadership development that is going to get you to your future, and that you are looking for those skills that are required for the future and where you want the organization to be. Leaders' responsibility, that the leadership has to own this, and you have to have them fully engaged. And so that can mean that you have them, that you're communicating with them often, that you're asking them to be involved in the program, that they know what the results are of the program, and that they know how it is being measured and evaluated. So leaders have responsibilities. So this can be as leaders, as teachers. They can be talking about the program. They can be even a mentor in the program. And it's not just your CEOs, it's your senior leaders as well. The third, this was that crazy wave, the surfing, the pipeline. You guys, if you've learned anything, you've learned a Hawaiian term for a great surf wave called a pipeline, is that you have to have leadership quality. You have to have quality leadership built in, and that you have to have it part of succession planning. And that you really have, that has to be a focus on that. And it has to be results oriented. Remember that when I shared that 1 in 10 a survey by Fortune magazine, 1 in 10 CEOs do not think that their leadership programs are having business impact. So that's because we need to make sure that your leadership program is results oriented, and that it is established, tracked, measured, and evaluated. That everybody in the organizations, you have to value learning and development for everybody. It has to be valued for all employees. So it has to be systemic throughout the organization. so that they know that you're not just giving lip service to the high potentials because it's a glamorous thing to have people going off to fancy learning leadership development programs, that it has to be a core value throughout the entire organization. And that is how you will have success in your leadership development program. And finally, it has to be long-term, it has to be aligned, and you have to have a systemic approach. So it's not just that one and done, that you need to constantly be evaluating it, you need to be able to be pivoting, you needing to be able to be adjusted and adapted as either systems change in your organizations. Your leadership development programs have to pivot as well. So they can't just sit on that shelf. They have to be changing constantly. It's like you're constantly in pilot mode because you're wanting to evaluate, because organizations are changing so fast that we know that the leadership programs have to be able to adapt as well. So based on this, what are your next steps? And I want to share with you, I'm not going to drill into this because we're getting in a little bit. This is the ATD, our leadership development process. And you can see that it is very similar to what we outlined as our success factors. So we talked about this earlier about the house, is that you have to lay the foundation, you have to build it properly, have to have that blueprint. Then you have to envision the future. Where is it that you're wanting to go? Be future focused. Then you have to agree on and articulate an action plan. And that gets to the questions on how do you keep your leadership motivated? It's that articulating what you are doing. Then you design, and then you sustain. So I'm going to press pause here and see what kind of questions that everybody might have right now. Where do you see giving the leaders just explore their ways and then bring in their own types? We have a question here on how do you think of getting them to motivate? How do you motivate the senior leaders to invest in leadership? Well, it's demonstrating the results. Sharing results and showing what kind of impact it is going to be on the organization. If you have an organization that you want to be going more digital, that means your leadership has to be more adept and be able to pivot. So that's one of the things, is that you want them to be able to understand how to be more pivoted and adaptive. So if you're constantly talking about the results that you're going to get for them. So if you've got employees that are not interested in learning, then if people aren't wanting to learn, if they're not interested in learning, then that is somewhat of you can look at it a couple of different ways, having a learning culture and what the organization is doing and that you're valuing it for all. But it is also letting it know that participating in leadership development programs is a secret to success within your organization. So it's constantly telling the stories. It's constantly sharing with how many managers that were promoted to the next level of management because they attended a leadership program. We know it is no guarantee, but you have to share the success. And when you share success, then people will think, okay, I can see that this is more than they're giving lip service. How do you sustain progress? That is an issue. Definitely sustaining progress. A lot of that has to do where you want to be able to, it's really adapting your systems. It's reporting. It's a lot of ways you can use social media and shared groups and using Yammer and other types of platforms for people to share what they've been doing and to ask questions. You can continue the cohorts throughout the process and having hubs and huddles so that they are sharing. So it's an interesting, what if your organization somebody has a question, what do you definitely have a unpredictable situation like privatization? Well, right there, it's getting in and understanding what is going to, that is a strategy. And then what are the leaders that you need to be to lead you through that privatization? That is a great case, business case for having a leadership program that is going to enable you. And that leadership development program should be focused on the privatization efforts that the organization needs to have. So you build that into part of the program. So methods to use to articulate the action plan, you can use, there's lots of different ways that you can have all staff presentations. You can just build it into your regular reporting. Hopefully as talent development professionals, your regular reporting, you have a dashboard that people can see what your leadership, all of your initiatives are doing, and that you constantly have regular update meetings with your manager, and that your manager knows the story so that they can continue to share your success stories, and that they are constantly sharing that success stories. So we have a question about, can you explain the designing the development efforts? So there's a question about design the developmental efforts. So these are the individual pieces that you will be putting together, how the leadership program will be, the components of it. And you can see that it is much farther along in the process, because when you've identified the foundation, and then you've envisioned the future, and then you know where the organization needs to be, then the development pieces will follow into place. So if your goal is privatization, and you know the skills and competencies that you need for privatization, then you would put those into developmental elements. All right. So if your CEO's in burnout but still wants to have a program for the sake of it, is it worth doing? I love it. Your CEO wants to have it. So you've got his interest. And I think it is still worth doing. What you have to do is that you've got their ear, you've got their buy-in that they want to do it, and now you have to show that there's real business impact. So that's, again, telling that story. That is it worth doing? Definitely. It's worth doing. It's how you design that program so that you can flip that CEO's mindset. Okay. Let me see. We've got a few more questions here. How do we ensure that leadership program is contextual? Contextual means how is it contextual? It's really contextual within your organization. So that gets back to understanding your organization's strategy and what is its goals, and that gets into understanding the foundation. So how the sustain the progress works, how would that work? It's sustaining, so that, remember we talked about being measurable and evaluation, that you constantly are adapting the program to meet different needs of the business and different elements in the business, and that you are adjusting it accordingly, and that you're also sustaining, you're staying with your group, that you just don't have them go to the program and then they're done, is that you can continue being engaged with them. So leadership development programs are usually 12 months, 18 months, they can even be 24 months. So you have them just beyond that. All right. Somebody asked about, is it about if it's advisable putting when you're going through restructuring and redundancies? Well, your organization is when you are being restructured, it's probably is a good time to have a leadership development, because your organization is is realigning to get its priorities and to meet new business needs. And that is where you want to be future focused and making sure that you have a leadership development program for that is that focused. So it's a good idea to do it. You might not be able to invest in as much money, but when you're restructuring, you're wanting to be future focused. So would the balanced scorecard strategies work with this? Most definitely, because balanced scorecard, it's very good. It's a great dashboard for reporting. And so, all right. I think that that is it. So our next, I just want to show you here where we've got. So I want to thank you all for, I know for many of you, this is the end of your day that we had prayer time. So I appreciate, I know there will be a recording. And I want to thank you guys for beginning my day and starting this day and wrapping up your day with me, talking about leadership development. Your questions were amazing. It is something that we can talk about leadership development all the time. So I want to make sure, don't miss our conference that we've got coming in Saudi Arabia. And I will be there delivering a workshop about building leadership development programs. And so, and with that, I will turn the webcast over back to Hoda.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. I think Elizabeth has just concluded a great webinar. We are getting a lot of questions, so that's fantastic. If there's any specific questions that you have that haven't been answered, we'll try to see if we can get them answered by Elizabeth via email and send that across to you. We do have a recording of this, so like I said at the beginning of the webinar, we will be sending a recording to everyone within the next 48 hours of the entire webinar. And let us know if you have any questions or if there's any interest about the ATD conference or in specific the webinar. But yeah, I think that this concludes today's webinar. And thank you all for joining us. Just kind of seconding what Elizabeth said. I know it's the end of the day for a lot of people and it's quite busy, but we're happy to do webinars from time to time to kind of engage with our audience in a continuous basis. So thank you all for joining today's webinar.